What's up, guys? Ryan with Aethix Fitness back after a long hiatus there, and I'm sorry about that. I had to get some things in order in my life and get a little haircut, get shaped up for you guys, look good, because we're doing Vegan Fitness 101, Episode 6, all about plant-based protein today. So I just crushed this bottle of Kavita Kombucha French Oak Apple. If you guys haven't had this already, you guys have to get on this, because this shit is delicious, man. The first thing I want to touch on here is plant-based protein being incomplete, and that is a myth. Point done. Let's move on.
It's not true. It's bullshit.
Just kidding, but really, all plant-based proteins are complete. There is no such thing as a plant-based protein that is incomplete. All of them have all of the 9 essential amino acids there. When people refer to incomplete proteins, they're trying to say that there's amino acids missing in that protein structure, and that's just not the case. They're all there. They vary in degrees of how much amino acid is in one protein, though. They vary in amounts, but as long as you're eating a variety of foods, a variety of protein sources, you're going to get all your amino acids that way. That's all that really matters. When you eat protein, it's broken down into these constituent parts, these amino acids, and restructured in your body into new protein strands that go to fuel your cellular functions, your muscle growth, things like that. So as long as you're eating enough from a variety of sources, you're going to get all of the amino acids you need from plant-based sources. One thing that's pretty interesting, actually, is that all amino acids originally came from plants. Hold on a second. I know you're going to get mad, but just listen. So the person that eats meat, for instance, the cow or the pig that they ate, the muscle of that cow or that pig was fueled by plants. It was fueled by the corn or the soy that they ate. Those amino acids were ingested from that corn or that soy and broken down into new proteins in that cow or that pig's muscles, which that person eventually ate. So I think that's pretty interesting. All amino acids really come from the earth to begin with. Not to get all deep on you guys there, but I just thought it was pretty interesting.
Check out the big brain on bread. You're a smart motherfucker, that's right.
So to sum this up, there's no need to overcomplicate this. Just get your foods from a variety of plant-based protein sources, and you're going to cover all of your amino acid bases. So the next point is that higher protein intake is important to build muscle mass. And that's very important because a lot of vegans are out there trying to say that you can build optimal amounts of muscle on 60 grams of protein per day weighing 180 pounds or something like that. And that's just not the case. If you want to build maximal amounts of muscle, you probably want to get about 0.8 grams per pound of body weight up to about 1 gram per pound of body weight if you're in a body fat range of about 10% to 20% as a male. Now you can build muscle on lower amounts of protein like 0.6 grams per pound of body weight or even a little bit lower, but it might just not be optimal. You might not build muscle quite as quickly or quite as efficiently, but you still can build muscle overall. The studies just show that overall, if you get about that range of 0.8 grams per pound of body weight up to about 1 gram in a healthy body fat range, you're probably going to get plenty of protein to build all your muscle at that point at an optimal rate. If you weigh above about 20% body fat, you could probably go by lean body mass, so about 1 gram per pound of lean body mass, just because you probably don't need quite as much protein at that point. You don't have quite as much muscle in comparison to your body fat that you're holding. If you're lower than about 12% body fat, 10% body fat, and still cutting, you may want to actually raise your protein above about 1 gram per pound of body weight per day. And that's because protein is anti-catabolic and fuels your muscle protein synthesis response. So as you're cutting to really low body fat levels, your body is trying to get rid of all this extra muscle. It's using all this energy, and it doesn't want to hold on to that. The more protein you're eating, the more you're giving your body a reason to keep this muscle by elevating that muscle protein synthesis response. So if you're trying to be a bodybuilder, if you're trying to step on stage, then you want to eat higher protein come contest time, maybe even as high as 1.5 grams per pound of body weight, which is obviously ridiculously high, but it may optimize muscle levels at that body fat. Something I stumbled across recently is experienced lifters may actually need a bit less protein, and that's because their bodies become more efficient at using the protein that they intake to fuel muscle to hold on to the muscle they already have. This means that if you're a vegan lifter, you've been lifting for 10, 15 years or something, you could probably maintain the muscle you have on about 0.6 grams per pound of body weight, something like that. That's pretty damn low. So if you're interested in doing that, you just want to maintain your muscle, then this is probably fine for you, according to the study at least. But there is also a decline in MPS response in older populations. So that means if you're about 45 or 50 years old or above, your MPS responses may actually be blunted a bit. This means that you may need to eat a little more protein to get the same amount of MPS response. So all this means is that if you're a little bit older and you're trying to build muscle, you may want to get a little bit more protein than somebody else. So there may be a slight difference in MPS response from plant-based proteins, and this probably has to do with the amino acid leucine. There's one study that was done a while ago about wheat protein comparing to whey protein and how it affects MPS levels. So when they compared the wheat protein to the whey protein at the same intake levels, there was a lower MPS response in the wheat protein compared to the whey protein, and this has to do with the leucine. When they equated for leucine levels in both the proteins, this means they had to consume more of the wheat protein than the whey. Then that maximized both the MPS levels in the body. So basically all this means is that if you're at a very advanced level of lifting and you're a plant-based lifter, you may just want to try to focus on your leucine intake a little bit, just try to get a little bit more leucine throughout the day, just because this is most associated with those MPS levels, which is obviously associated with muscle mass, like I said. So it just may be a point for trying to gain that last little pound of muscle as an advanced lifter. Other than that, don't worry about it. One thing that people ask me a lot is it harder to hit protein macros on a plant-based diet? And I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's very easy to hit my protein macros every day, but I will admit that it takes a bit of a learning curve to get there. If you're coming from a standard American diet or an omnivorous diet in general, you're not going to be used to eating plant-based protein sources as a staple for your protein sources. A lot of vegans at first go to eating things like quinoa, lentils, veggies, things like that, and they're just not high in protein necessarily. Your best protein sources as a vegan are going to be things like tofu, tempeh, seitan, protein powders, things like that. And it does take a bit of a learning curve to really incorporate that into your plant-based diet at first. I highly recommend tracking your foods at first. Once you have a good idea how much protein you're getting per day, it's going to be pretty effortless after that. So start tracking for a while, figure out how much you're eating, and then it becomes second nature. You really don't have to track after a certain point. You pretty much have a good idea of how much protein you're getting per day as long as you're eating enough of those staples. But to sum it up, I don't find it any more difficult to get enough protein on a plant-based diet than any other diet. It just is a bit of a learning curve at first. Once you adapt to it, it's not any more difficult. And we'll go through some great protein options in a little bit. So protein from all sources should be counting towards your protein goal. I hear some bodybuilders and stuff say things like they don't count their protein from veggies, and this just doesn't make sense at all because protein is broken down into amino acids in your body anyways. Your body doesn't know where you're getting those amino acids from. As long as you're getting them by eating a variety of protein sources, that's all that matters. It doesn't know if you're getting it from broccoli, spinach, soy protein, or meat. It doesn't know. As long as you're getting those amino acids, that's all that matters. So count all your protein intake, no matter if you're drinking soy milk or eating veggies or whatever. Just count that towards your daily goal and you're good to go. So here's a quick chart that I made down here with different sources of protein. I have primarily fat sources with high amounts of protein over here, primarily carb sources with high amounts of protein, and high protein in general with low fat and low carb. So first of all, I want to start with the fat sources with high protein. These are going to be things like seeds, nuts, and nut butters. Pumpkin seeds, for instance, about 28 grams per serving, 160 calories, 9 grams of protein, and 14 grams of fat. These are not going to be your protein staple, obviously, because they're so high in fat. I'm not saying don't eat these foods, but you're going to be getting way too many calories overall, way too much fat with not enough carbs and protein overall. It's going to be very hard to hit your protein goals without going excessively high in calories and fat. It's good in moderation with these other foods, but not as a main staple. So other foods like nuts and nut butters, these are also examples of fats with protein sources. They're pretty high in protein, but as you can see, the fat just vastly outweighs them, and so would the calories, obviously, per amount of protein. The next section I have here is carbs with protein. That's going to be things like beans, lentils, veggies, and quinoa. A lot of vegans love to say that beans and lentils are a staple protein source, and that's not the case. It's a carb source that's high in protein, and it's a great protein source, but isn't going to be your main protein source on a very high protein diet, especially on a lower calorie diet. Lentils, for instance, a quarter cup for a serving, 160 calories, 11 grams of protein, and 24 grams of carbs. That's a lot more carbs than protein, and I don't know about you, but eating a bowl of lentils is a lot more difficult for me and a lot more filling than just eating one serving of something like seitan.
Violet, what are you doing now? You're blowing up.
I feel funny.
I'm not surprised.
What's happening?
You're blowing up like a balloon.
It's very hard to eat a lot of lentils because of all the fiber. It's very filling. It's a great food, very healthy food, not super high in protein per the amount of calories, per the amount of carbs. So this is our list of foods right here that's great in moderation with these other ones here. Veggies are also actually very high in protein, surprisingly high. Broccoli, for instance, 3 cups of it would be 100 calories, 7 grams of protein, and 12 grams of carbs. That makes it a pretty good protein source, and like I said, definitely count it towards your protein goal, but it's probably going to be way too hard to eat that much broccoli in a day, and also you'd be pretty high in carbs. So these are all great sources right here, but you're probably going to have to incorporate more high protein, low fat, low carb sources, or primarily protein sources on a plant-based diet to really hit your protein goals on low calories. So protein powder, for instance, is an obvious one. I personally use TrueNutrition.com. They're very customizable. You can make tons of different proteins from them. They pick your flavor, pick any add-ons that you want, and it's very cheap, so you can buy it in bulk. I usually buy like 7 or 8 pounds at a time, and it lasts me months. It's only like $70. I do have an affiliate code, ATHIX, at checkout, so AETHIX will save you 5% off anything you order. It's not a ton of money, obviously, but it'll save you the cost of shipping, and if it helps you, please use it. I would recommend these guys no matter what, though. They've been my favorite protein source for years, and they're just very cheap, very customizable, so I personally love them. Use the code if you want to, or use another protein source. Doesn't matter to me. Seitan is another protein source that's great on a plant-based diet. 2 ounces per serving, 90 calories, 18 grams of protein, 4 grams of carbs, and 1 gram of fat. That's just a great protein source. It's mostly protein, obviously, with very low calories. That's going to help you get towards your protein goal easily on a low-calorie diet. Tempeh is another great one. Super firm tofu, the firmer the better, basically. TVP are other great examples. Very low calories, high in protein. Mix and match all these, and that'll help you hit your protein goals, but use these as your staples. So I hope that helps you guys figure out some good protein sources and just get a good overview of plant-based protein in general. And if you guys have any questions, put them in the comments below. Give me a like on this video. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me a ton, obviously. And share this video if you're liking it. Really appreciate it, guys. And the next episode will be episode 7. So I'll see you guys then. Peace out.